This your host, Selah Shalom, and this is the Cosmon Teachings and the Words of Jehovah and his angel ambassadors from the Cosmon Bible Owaspi. And the topic of discussion today is going to be called The Submerged Continent of Pan, the missing link to the human history. Now, in the documentary I have called Adam and Angels and the Genealogy of the Human Race, these events took place on this continent called Pan. Now, the continent of Pan was a continent located where the Pacific Ocean is. This continent was the biggest landmass out of all other continents. The continent of Pan was sunken underwater during the flood in the Ark of Noah. So much of the history about the people, nations, and civilization on this continent are lost, making it a missing link to the human history. But just recently, they discovered off the coast of Okinawa, under the waters in the Pacific Ocean, temples, statues of faces, and gigantic monuments showing the evidence of this sunken continent. Now, according to Owaspi, this continent was the birthplace of humans. It was here that the Adamites, or Homo erectus, originated from. And it was here that the angels came to add the Adamites in the beginning on the continent of Pan. Now, in the Lord's first book, chapter 2, verse 12, it states, "So also will I, the Lord, provide in the Cosmon era to discover the sunken land of Pan, that mortals may comprehend the magnitude of the work of the Lord." So in this verse it states that in the Cosmon era, which began the year 1848 AD present time, when the earth entered the Ark of Cosmon, that humans will discover the continent of Pan, which was discovered a decade after the Owaspi makes mention of this continent. So the Owaspi was written in 1881, and this continent was discovered in the mid-1900s. So the Owaspi reveals that this continent will be discovered, which took place in the mid-1900s. Now, in the book of Safa, titled Pan, subtitled The Primitive Tongue, missing scripts from the Owaspi, it states, "Pan said, I am the earth, the first inhabitable place for man. I am beneath the water, being submerged. My name survives. My words are man's first words on the continent of Pan, where words first used by man." So in this verse it states that Pan is the first place humans inhabited, and it was the place where humans first used words. And it was the angels that taught man words, as I explained in the documentary called Adam and Angels. And in verse 2 it states, "I am signifying earth. I am earth words. I am the dispersed language. From me, Pan, came all earth languages. In all nations I am found. I deliver up. By me shall man know him who sent me. By his angels I was given to mortals. By them brought forth in this day." So here it states all languages stem from Pan. And it was the angels that gave man the first language. And the word signified earth. And that was the expression of saying earth, And the symbol or character was a straight line. And in verse 3 it states, "Pan said, my steadfast lies in the east. I founded the words of China and India, Phoenicia, and Hebrew are my offspring. By the tribes of Phethis was I carried over. Egoquim found me in Guatemala, which is America. Egoquim became Algoquim. I am before all other languages, the first spoken words. Before me, man uttered as a beast, but made no words." So here it states that the language of China, India, Phoenician, Hebrew, all stems from the Pan language. And it also stated that the language of Pan was the first language before which man uttered as a beast. Just as a baby utters sounds before learning a language, so did humans in the beginning. uttered sounds before they were given a language by the angels in that day. And the language given was a language of images and symbols and characters, 72,000 years before Cosmon. Now in the first book of the First Lords, chapter 4, verse 2 through 4, it states, verse 1, about this time man began to use his lip and tongue in enunciating words, prior to which he spoke in the thorax. So, before humans used his lips and tongues to sound out words, he uttered from the thorax, which is the chest region. So man in the beginning uttered sounds like a baby utters sounds before learning words. So was it with man in the beginning. And in verse 2 it states, and the Lord spoke unto the Ions, or the Abelites, saying, that the labor of the Lord thy God may be remembered on earth, go provide me a stone, and I will engrave it with my own hand, and it shall be called Simoin, because it shall be a testimony unto all nations and peoples of the earth, of the first written language in all the world. So here the Lord gives the Ions, or Abelites, the first written language called the Simoan language, which was a language of images, symbols, and characters. And this language is engraved on stones, caves, and rocks. The oldest writings found are images carved in stone. And in verse 3 it states, and the Ions, or Abelites, prepared a stone, and hewed it flat, and then polished it smooth. And the Lord came down in the night and engraved it. And the Lord explained it. Through his angels taught he, the Ions, or Abelites, the meaning of the characters engraved thereon. So here the Lord, through his angels, engraved the first written language and explained the meaning of the characters. So humans are given their first language by the Lord 72,000 years BK, before Cosmon. And in verse 4 it states, and the Lord said, go into all cities in all countries of the world and provide ye copies like unto the tablet I have given. So it came to pass, the angels of heaven inspired the Ions, or Abelites, to make tablets and to read them, that the first language of the earth, or Panic, might be preserved to the races of men. And it was so. After the Lord explained the language to the Ions, or Abelites, the Ions are commanded to go into all the world, teaching the first written language, which was a language of images and symbols. And these images are engraved all around the world, carved in stone, rocks, and caves. And this first written system of images, symbols, and characters was given to man 72,000 years BK. Now we're going to talk about Japan for a minute, because Japan is a piece of the continent of Pan that did not sink underwater during the flood in the Ark of Noah. And in the Lord's first book, chapter 1, verse 55, it states, the fleet of 2 ships carried to the north was named Yasta, which in the Panic tongue was Zapan, which is the same country that is today called Japan, signifying relic of the continent of Pan, for it lay to the north where the land was cleaved in twine. So in this verse it states that Japan is a piece of the continent of Pan, which survived during the sinking of Pan, which is where the name Japan comes from, signifying relics of the continent of Pan. And the 2 fleets, or boats, called Yesta, is 2 boats that landed on Japan after the flood of Noah. And I have a documentary called The 5 Sons of Noah, where I'm going to explain that in more detail. So stay tuned for that. Now we're going to talk about the Pan language. Now here is a tablet known as the Okinawa Rosetta Stone. Okinawa is the island where the discovery of Pan was found in the mid-1900s. On this tablet, it tells a story in ancient symbols. It describes a peaceful